Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Tarot Readers Academy Tarot Jam for October 2018. It's been a hot second. We don't do any tarot jams during Tarot Summer School, but that's now closed for the year, so we've got a bit more time. So thank you, everyone, who's joining live on the call, and for those of you who are watching this on the replay. So tarot jams are where everyone who's a part of the Tarot Readers Academy Facebook group, or the Tarot Readers Academy actual academy, students of the academy, welcome to join in on tarot conversation and just like hang out with other tarot peeps. Because for some of us, we don't have a lot of people in our lives that we can talk about subjects such as tarot. We live in rural areas and we don't get to really connect with a lot of people. So this is the reason why we do these things. So I've had a bunch of questions come in via email and also via our Facebook group. So if you can hear me, like if I'm not looking, I'm just looking at me getting the questions up. And we also may have some tarot questions from people on the call as well. So let's get started, shall we? Okay, so our first question this evening comes from Amy, and she has asked, can you list some of the tarot conferences or conventions that are worth attending and traveling to? Great question. I will field this one, and then if anyone wants to add afterwards, they totally can. So I live in North America, I live in Canada. So I only know my experiences from the two conferences that I've been to. I'd love to get to the UK Tarot Conference over in London, but I have not been over there yet. So the two that I can speak about are the Northwest Tarot Symposium, which is in Portland, and that is in March, and the Readers Studio, which is in New York City in April. I've been to both. I've spoken at both. I'm speaking at the Readers Studio in 2019. I've spoken at Newt's in 2016. 17. I'm speaking again next year. I'm like, what year is it? And so the Northwest Tarot Symposium is awesome. For me, it's obviously closer than New York. Though I would recommend both of them. The Readers Studio is amazing. The Readers Studio is sold out. It's sold out within something like 3 weeks. The ticket's going live. It sold out really, really quickly, which is, in a way, it's like crazy awesome, right? Because it's becoming so great that so many of us want to do these things. It's like we've told that we need to get a bigger space for these events. But they are both I'd highly recommend both of them. It's like a big old slumber party full of people who love tarot just as much as you do. So it's like awesome. And the marketplaces are very, very, very tempting. But I would recommend those two. Has anyone here been to anything other than those two conferences or conventions, or just me with the Northwest Tarot Symposium and I think it might just be me on here. So those are the ones that I recommend that you have a look at. So for sure. Is this on anyone else's radar too, to go to something like this in the future?
Mine. It's Leah.
Hi, Leah.
Yeah, it's so funny that question was asked because I was just searching for both of those. I didn't realize the one in
I think we've frozen. Leah's frozen. I think she was saying I don't think that she knew the one in New York was sold out. Alison was saying I'd love to go to Portland. Love Portland. Oh, you're back. You froze.
Okay. I don't know what happened, but yeah, the one in New York would be close to me, very close actually. So, maybe the Northwest one, I've heard a lot about it. Obviously, I think I've seen your post about it too.
Oh, we keep losing Leah. Sorry, how do we keep losing you? If you might, I will wait. So we've got anyone in Australia. We keep losing you, Leah. What I was going to say, what I recommend for you to do, if anyone is interested in either of those two or the UK Tarot Conference, go and join their Facebook groups. because then you'll know, and their mailing list, because then you're going to know when the tickets go available, like straight away. And so next year, say if you want to go to the Reader Studio, you can jump on and secure your ticket before they sell out. We've got a couple of people in Australia. It is so true. And that's one of the things about living here, is that it's much more affordable and easier for me to get to these things. If I was in Australia, I would not be going to them as frequently as I do. But it's just like Portland, and I can drive from Vancouver to Portland. So, so there's a few people from Australia here, which is great. I don't know if you have a tarot conference. I know there's a Wiccan conference every year, but I don't know if there's a tarot conference. That might be something for someone to start. I know there's like the Mind Body Expos, but there's nothing that I've seen that is like a specific tarot, one. So next question is from Bria Craig. What is your take on when cards jump out while shuffling? Now, would anybody else like to talk on this subject of when cards bounce out of a deck when you're shuffling? Does anyone put any importance on those? Or I am too. So Josh has just said he's a sloppy shuffler. I am as well. Whenever they come out of the deck when I'm reading, I'm like, well, that was just because I'm a hard shuffler and a sloppy shuffler, so I don't usually put a lot of stock in it. I sometimes may look at the card and see, and then if it comes up again, I might take it, look at it as a little important. But I like the way you think, Joshua. I assume the message is slow down and shuffle right. So true. We got some people mentioning some stuff here. If it's once, I put them back. If it's once, I put them back. If it keeps happening, I start paying attention. That's from Allison. Rosemary, my friends add them to their spread. I consider it bad shuffling. So do I. Karen, sometimes it's from my sloppy shuffling, but sometimes I have no idea how they jump out, and I do take it as something of a significance. And then Beth, depending on when they jump as you ask the question. Joshua, you have your hand up, hun?
Yeah, it's kind of funny actually that this question came up. I actually, so normally, like for me, if I'm reading for myself, and 90% of the time, no, I'm like, okay, I'm a crappy shuffler, and I drop cards because I'm not coordinated. So that's what happens. But I also, when I'm reading for clients, I have them shuffle too. And so I've had a client recently who was like, well, what's your stance on jumpers? Because I've got a jumper. And I'm like, well, I think most of the time we're just crappy shufflers, but you're shuffling right now, not me. It's your energy. It's your dime. It's your message. What do you feel about it? And she's like, I think it needs to be part of the spread. And I'm like, okay, sure, let's put it in there. So I don't try and encourage it, but if it's someone else's, I'm working with someone else and they're shuffling and they feel like it's significant, then I'm not going to argue and say, like, this is their message. If you think that's relevant, we're working with your energy and we're working with getting your message to you. So it's kind of like, I'm not going to argue and be like, no, we don't do it that way. It's not a productive argument to have, but those are the only times I think I've felt like, okay, if you feel like it needs to be there, then okay, we can put it there. But in general, I'm like, guys, I'm just really crappy at shuffling. That's what it is.
Yeah, totally. That's a good point, right? It's like we also want to know we also want to make sure when we're holding space for other people to honor their space, right? To honor what they bring to the exchange or what they feel is important as well. I totally agree. Pam's saying, I actually hope I get jumpers, and it seems to resonate with what I'm feeling or going through. Gina said, I actually read in the Golden Dawn approach that Israel Regardie used, that cards flying out when you shuffle are to be placed back in, basically ignore it. So, and the thing is, like, I don't, and if anyone is familiar with me for any amount of time, I'm like, take what resonates with you, leave the rest, do it your way. So I certainly don't feel as though it's ever productive to shut down one person's way of doing things the other, because if you are also a medium or a psychic reader or you know, there could be some other things at play with jumpers, or you could just get information from that, or a significance from that anyway. Tarot is so customizable as a practice, it's silly to be dogmatic with it. 100% agree, Joshua. I 100% agree. So did anyone else want to say anything about cards jumping out of the deck before we move on to the next question? No? Okay, cool. Bananas. So we have another question here. Sorry, I've got questions everywhere. Another question from, so we got Anjali Aqua. So we've got a question here saying, when do you know when it's the right time to create your own tarot or oracle deck? What kind of questions should I be asking myself and light beings who support me? Are they two separate questions, or is that one question relating to how they can support your creation? Beth, was that like how they can support the creation, or was that two questions? They're two questions. Okay, cool. All right. So the first one will say, when do you know it's right time to create your own tarot and oracle deck? Right. So I might have a few things to say about this. The first thing is it depends on your intention for creating it. I think being really clear in the reasons why you're creating a product is very important, no matter what business you're in and where you're at all. Joshua makes a good point. Do you have the skill and or resources to do it first? Like, if you are doing it to make money, there are easier ways to make money, let me tell you. Production is a nightmare. I know everyone's been following fellow Tarot Readers Academy teacher, Benabel Wenz, Spirit Keepers Tarot. Just like, and I don't usually like share that much when it goes through the process. Maybe I should, I don't know. I just haven't done that in the past. But it is heavy duty work. It's exhausting. She like blew through, I don't know how she did that so quickly. I'm convinced she's not human. I'm convinced she's like a superior fucking light being sent here from another planet, like, honestly. And she's so nice to boot, which is like, how are you? So it's exhausting from like an energetic expenditure point. It's very expensive from a capital point, like how much money you got to put into it, and then the fulfillment of it, and then the production. So it's a lot. So if it's from a money-making perspective, it can be quite difficult. I like doing it, and I do it myself because I'm a very control freak kind of person, and I want to be in control of the card stock and the quality and everything from the font to like everything. But I also had to invest a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of effort into all of it. If you're a creator who just has to create, like with me, the Bad Bitches Tarot started off as one thing. It started off as an ebook, and then it went to this whole other thing, and that project took less than 3 months from start to finish. It just like happened so quickly, and it just like got channeled through me. I'm like, sometimes those things happen too. But I think it's just really, is it a labor of love? Are you looking to make a profit from it? Do you want this to be a leg or a pillar of your business? And if so, how much money are you going to reinvest into that the next time you do a printing or the next project? It needs to be something you look at from an independent business model. That's how I would say you'd know you're ready, is like, are you ready to invest the time and effort? And then really, what is your intention for creating the deck in the first place? Or creating that product in the first place, because that can be quite a telling thing. Does anyone have any questions about deck creation or doing that kind of stuff while we're on the subject, or want me to branch out into any of those sort of realms that I've mentioned? Gina's saying, I think it's the same with anything. You must have a passion for it to get through the tough times. If it's all for money, I don't think that'll work. And that's true for anything, right? That's true for being a tarot reader full-time, or doing it as a part of your income, especially when you work for yourself, because it does get tough. It does get isolating. There are times when you're just like exhausted, and you still have to keep going to pay bills because it is work, as Joshua was saying, for sure. But sit with the intention. I'm always like, sit with the intention, sit with like the reasons why, do a pros and cons list as to what you're kind of looking out for, and then expect to spend more money than you think you're going to have to spend to get it done. That's let me tell you from experience, folks, because I've done this more than once. And then the second question, sorry, I've got here, how did you find a manufacturer? From Alison. A lot of Googling, and thankfully a lot of people who had tread this path before, like the community that on Instagram and things like that. I reached out to a few people, and I didn't just like drop DMs in their inbox from people that I didn't know and be like, tell me everything you know about producing a tarot deck. These are actually people that I knew quite well, and didn't feel as though I was kind of stepping on any toes. But I've been, honestly, I'm now up to my third manufacturer. So I've used different ones for different decks, and I think I found a printer that I'm probably going to use going forward. But it's tough. Like, even, you know, you think you find a good one, and then it's like, oh, something happens, and then you got to find another one. And then, yeah, it's tough. A lot of it can be trial and error as well, but really relying on people who've been there and done that, and that had a good relationship, definitely helped for sure. And then the second question that Beth had was, what kind of questions should I be asking myself and the light beings who support me? So I'm sure other people will have something to say on this. I'll just speak on it, and then I'll hand it over. For me, again, I always look at the goal in mind. So whenever I'm creating a tarot spread for a client or a tarot spread for myself, I don't want to get right to the root. I want to get right to either the cause of the issue, the cause of the pain or the struggle or the conflict or the whatever it may be. I want to get to there, and then I build the question and I build the spread around it, because I want to address something directly. I do general readings, but I usually don't. I would usually ask something much more general, like, what do I need to know today, or what do my spirit guides want me to be aware of, or what lesson am I currently going through? Maybe some more general questions to ask, or how can I be in more alignment with my goals today? Things like that. But if I'm doing a reading for a client, or if I'm actually trying to do a reading that is more getting to a point or getting to a solution or divining a question, I'm getting right down to the nitty-gritty. I'd love to hear what other people think about that question. I'll just say it again. What kinds of questions should I be asking myself and the light beings who support me? So what are some of your favorite things to ask the cards and your spirit guides? Anybody else want to chime in here?
I always like to ask if I am following my truest path.
That's a good question. And do you find, Andrea, when you ask that question, do you find the answers to be really clear, or have they ever been like super vague?
No, they're always clear. It's usually, thankfully, in confirmation.
Yeah. So a lot of
focus on something. It's very obvious.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for sharing. Gina has said, mine is often, what strength do I need to tap into to get the best result? That's a great question. So what strength do I need to tap into to get the best result? That is a really good question. Pam, I ask how I can live life today in a line with my highest good. It's another great question. Joshua, I always ask to get a view of what's going on within and without at the time. That's a great little spread there too, right? Like what's going on within and without, because then you can have a look at external forces and things like that. Alison has her hand up. Hey.
There. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, I was going to add to that. I found those Instagram challenges, when I started doing those, because there's a lot of prompts and questions there that I wouldn't think to ask for myself, but I found getting the answers were quite surprising and almost life-changing sometimes.
That's such a good point. There are so many great Instagram challenges. Like one of the ones that's really well known is Lionhearts. So they do like the October tarot or the September tarot, and the prompts there are really, really good. So if you're looking for some prompts, Alison makes a really good point. Joshua, chime on in.
I think also, too, it's not so much the exact question you're asking, but the language you're using in the question. The question can be pretty, it doesn't have to be really, really tailored every time. But if you're aware of what language is constructive and what language isn't, you can get some very different results from a question. So, like, one, not to get too deep into it, but like I, for example, try not to look at obstacles. I don't ask for obstacles and problems. I look for challenges when I'm looking for things. I want to see things, frame it even from the perspective of me asking the question in a positive light so that we're getting something that's constructive and getting something that is not going to be overwhelming or to maybe discourage or inhibit the kind of behavior that we need in that moment. So it's just really about like thinking, what do these words mean, and what's the emotional impact of these words, and not just from the person who's asking the question, but from the way we're viewing it as the reader there.
That's a really, really good point. I totally agree. Leah, you have your hand up. Hopefully she can jump on in while we're waiting. We have Karen say, I ask them for guidance as to the deck I need to use for the question, and then I ask them to help me pick out the right spread in order to be able to provide as an accurate and guidance against the question for the client. Even though I'm just starting out and I'm getting some really good reviews on my Facebook page, and this is how I felt I need to go in this respect. Totally cool. Alison, I like to work with 3 cards and the way they relate to each other. To me, it's about the message the universe has for me at the time. If it's not that clear, I pull an additional card for clarification. Is Leah still here? Do you want to jump in, Leah?
I do. I think I was on mute before because I'm technically challenged. But I was going to say, obviously, honestly, sometimes even just like a body, mind, spirit, like a 3-card spread, I think can really be enlightening. And you can, whenever I've done that, I get a really clear view of like what's going on with me on those 3 planes. And oftentimes there's even a theme, whether it's like a little breadcrumb from card to card, or if there's just an overall theme of the card, like I never go wrong.
Well, thank you. Oh, we've had a shift there. Thank you so much for sharing. And then we've got Deirdre saying body, mind, spirit, or stop, start, continue are my faves. And they're great ones. I particularly like the stop, start, continue one. I'm very action oriented. I like to leave my readings with something to do. And then Joshua was saying, I will never not recommend starting with 3-card spread. Those sorts of spreads are so versatile and elegant. And they're great too from a perspective of you're not going to totally confuse yourself. One of the reasons why I'm not a massive fan of the Celtic crosses, particularly for beginners, is I feel like it can be a little bit too much information. And then people who are just beginning with the tarot tend to get overwhelmed with how many cards there are and how they interact with each other. Whereas a 3-card spread is just so, it can be so to the point. It's not overly complicated. I mean, hell, if you like to lay out half the deck, then go for it. Like if that's your jam, you know, may the jam be with you. But it's more, it can help. It's like getting more information and going deeper with the 3 cards that you have versus putting half the deck out and trying to decipher that. Because you can go really deep with just 1 card. And that's also another really good way of learning how those cards interact with each other in a way that's forcing you to really get to know them. You know, like the more like clarifiers you pull, and I, you know, like a one clarifier is 2, 3, however many you need. But I can find that sometimes it just adds another layer of confusion versus like, right, I'm going to actually sit here and think about this card, how it relates, the elemental associations, the body language and the art, the intuitive message of the you know, the numerology. There's so much you can kind of sit with. And those 3 card spreads can really force you to do so. And then Joshua also said, and you can customize them quickly, take a 3 card into really basic into really tailored one easily. So true. Karen, I do like the 3 card spreads, and then the ones with the known, unknown, above and below, which is one of my favorite 5 cards. I find this pretty much all that is needed, and it's often why my spirit guides make me feel that is all that is needed. I'm also finding how my hand pretty much just starts writing words, notes, and summaries down of what cards are pulled in context of the question. And that's one of my 5 card spreads or something like that. It's a 3 card and then above and below, or the conscious and the subconscious. And I agree, it's a nice overall sort of perspective of like what's going on in the middle and then what's going on around it, for sure. Any other comments or questions around that before I move on to the next one? Nope. Okay, so this is from Alison. Any tips for a new mum trying to boost her tarot biz? How do you balance time between content creation, readings, and parenting? This is super tough. It is not easy. I had a lot of very late nights when I started. In saying that, I was up like until 6 o'clock in the morning the other morning, because I was like, the muse entered in and it was like, we're gonna write, and I was like, okay. So let's have a look at, I'm gonna break this down. First of all, I'm going to break down how do you balance time between content creation, reading, and parenting. Time management is so important, and flexible time management when you have children is super important. Alison, can I ask, how many children do you have and how old?
I just had a baby in July, and this is my first kid.
Oh, well, congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a massive adjustment. So I'm going to give you some hot tips for what I did when I had my little one. I was on Instagram a lot. I was on Instagram like when I was breastfeeding a lot. I was like, well, I'm here for an amount of time. I'm going to be on Instagram connecting with other people in my industry, and you know, commenting and all that sort of stuff. I worked a lot when my son was napping when he was young. And then when I finally got to a stage, for the first like 6 months, it was a little tricky. So I also just want you to try not to be so hard on yourself. It's going to take a bit of time. I know I was pretty hard on myself at the beginning. I was like, I should be doing more. And I really wanted to do more, right? Like I was like, I really want to do all this stuff and write all these things and do all these readings. And I was like, yeah, but I just created this little life, and this little life needs me right now more than they're ever going to need me in their entire existence. And I only have this tiny little amount of time. So it was kind of like a bit of a balanced perspective of like, how much do I work and how much do I don't work? But just even doing a little bit at a time, and then batch your stuff. So if you've got, I don't know what kind of support or help you have, or if you have some free time, batch. So do all your content creation at once. I do little behind the scenes here. I do little photo shoots when I have when the lighting's really good. When the lighting is really good, honey, I get that white, I've got a white, not a desk, but it's like a piece of wood. I crack that out, and then I'll take like 4 or 5 photos that I know I'm going to post through Instagram for the week. So I'll do my Monday, my Money Manifestation Monday. I'll do my Oracle Wednesday. And yes, I don't actually pull them on a Wednesday. They're done beforehand because I need to get them done for the newsletter. And then I'll post, like I'll do a couple of pictures with like my Awaken Soul Oracle, or if I know I'm going to be reviewing a deck, I'll do that. So I'll like take that time to do 4 or 5 different photos if the light's good. And then I've got it. So when I was breastfeeding, I'd be like, oh, I can post now to Instagram, and then post it to my Facebook pages. And I will batch my readings. So like tomorrow, my day is full of readings. I got them booked out on my calendar, and I knock them out. But then Wednesday, I'm doing more recordings and content creation. So I've got that booked out. So really, really batching and doing things in little batches really helps. And then trying not to be too hard on yourself is a big thing. You got a lot of supportive message saying, please don't put super high expectations on yourself. It's okay to feel exhausted and just write off a whole day. Don't know how many times I did that. I was like, totally. Lynn was saying, I have so much respect for the content creators out there. Oh, thank you for your work and contribution to the growth of tarot enthusiasts all over the world. That work matters. Oh, that's very sweet. Josh is saying, I don't have kids, so my main career takes 60 to 7 hours a week. Yeah, you work a lot, Joshua, 60 to 70 hours a week. So balancing my tarot business career and marriage is hard, and I definitely recommend taking an hour or two a week to pre-make content for the week. And that is, like, honestly, so, so important. Agree with Gina, newborns just make you have a 24-hour cycle until they don't. I had days where brushing my hair and teeth was a baseline win. Totally. Or like having a shower. I was like, I win at life. I washed my hair. Woohoo. It's so true. So true. Like totally, like, or you forget to eat. You're like, or like the laundry is piling up and all that, kind of like, just give yourself as much grace as possible. This is something that is not really my saying. It's from a social media expert called Gary Vaynerchuk. I like him. He's very intense, and I quite enjoy like his very direct, intense kind of energy. But he said most people look at life and look at their business and look at being an entrepreneur as a sprint. It's a marathon. If you really want to make this your business, you shouldn't be worrying about what's going to happen in the next 1 to 2 years. You should be looking at the actions you can take for the next 5 to 10 years. And if it's that one thing you get to do every day, if you're just posting one post a day and one story a day on Instagram with good hashtags, with good engagement with your community, that's a win, because that's the long term. So remember, anytime you're getting frustrated because you haven't had an order come in for a couple of days, or your whatever it may be, you've got people, we've got work, marriage, kids, whatever, you're not feeling well, marathon, it's all about the long term. But hopefully you've had some stuff that's helped in there. I know I tend to talk a lot and very quickly.
Yeah, no, that's great. That helps a lot. Actually, just even in the last couple of weeks, the batching thing has been a huge difference. So it's like every time he goes down for a nap, I'm like, okay, I've got 20 minutes to 2 hours. Like, let's get to work. So yeah, it's tough because I feel like I'm on a clock, and my maternity payments end in 8 months. So it's like I gotta supplement that income somehow.
Yeah, and I was the same way. I took the time that I had. It's like literally, we could probably have the same conversation and be mirrored, right? I had the same thing. I was like, my maternity payments were coming up, and I was like, oh crap. So I get it, but small steps, and reach out. Like if you're feeling stuck, or make sure you reach out to the people here and in the academy for sure. Josh was saying, also remember your tarot business is not on any timeline but your own. If it needs a slower growth period, that's okay. Just keep it, and it'll start to be there when the time for returns. It's so true. It's so true. And Pam was saying how she just watched a video about block scheduling. It's honestly, it is like, it's so good when you work for yourself. It's a great way to go. And as for boosting your tarot business, honestly, one of the things I talk about with my coaching clients, people that I do business coaching with, it's like, try not to be all things to all people, because you're not going to be able to be all things to all people. Be really okay with being really specific about what you want to do in regards to reading, because there are a lot of us, and there are a lot of people on Instagram, on YouTube, and all that kind of thing. If you want to do this, be consistent and try not to be all things to all people. You don't have to accept every client. If things start to go sour, You know, make sure you're not pricing yourself too low because you're trying to get people to book with you. But what do you want to be known for is something that I would ask everyone who's watching this video, everyone who wants to start a tarot business, anyone who wants to do this work. Think about that. What do you want to be known for? Like, what do you want to have as your legacy, and have that be the thing you start with? Because, yeah, you do not need to be desperate for clientele, as Joshua says. So sit with that question and allow that to be a place for you to go from with how to boost your business. Because, yeah, it can be a bit tricky for sure. I hope that has helped. Does anyone want to add anything before I move on to the next question? Drink lots of water. Okay, so Christina has asked, what are your tips or tricks for the best way, or is the best way to learn tarot? For instance, I'm struggling with remembering meanings for the minor and the court cards, but I have no issue with the majors. So does anybody else want to field this one? Give my voice a little breaky break. Hop on in, Joshua.
Okay, so especially for like the minor arcana, because you know, I think people really do well with the majors because they're very iconic. They're memorable, and they're the kind of the stars of the show. But a lot of times I hear people have trouble with the minors, and I definitely did when I was a younger reader. And I wish I had learned this years ago, is learn what the numbers of each number has a theme across all 4 suits. So really learn what your elements mean from each of the different suits, and really learn what the numbers have in common. And you can almost kind of like with like a multiplication table, be like, okay, so fire and 4. I know what 4s are. I know what fire is. What is this? And you can kind of synthesize an in context to the question response. You don't have to rely so much on memorizing, 40 numbered cards and then all your court cards. You just need to learn kind of what the essence of the numbers are, the essence of the elements are, and that can apply for the court cards too. But court cards are, they can be a little trickier because they're kind of samey. They're just kind of like bored white people holding things in most decks, so they can be a little tricky. But like, still, the same fundament applies. You can be like, okay, so I know what knights are about. What would knight mean for air cards? What would knight mean for fire cards? And like, that technique takes a lot less time. It's a lot less memorization, and it's going to help you devise in context and personalized meanings. So you can come back to memorizing later and get those real correspondence heavy and technical meanings later. But in the meantime, you can synthesize little answers that way. And that, I wish I had learned that years ago. I really did. It would have saved me probably 5 years of struggling had I had been aware of that. And someone just told me that.
Such a great tip and just have one. And this was said on an old tarot jam where it's like, let's look at the courts for real quick, even though like I have my own system for the tarot court, and yes, a lot of the tarot courts and a lot of decks are very boring, but so I have my own system, as many of you know. But let's look at the really basics. So we've got the pages. Communicate. Like, if you could pick whatever you want, messenger, communication, whatever, pick your own child, whatever it is. Because even that, child of air, child of fire, child of earth, that's going to be a different pathway, I believe, to the keyword of message or messenger. Thank you. So messenger of air, messenger of earth, messenger of fire, messenger of water. How are they? That's like, there's so much you can even just go from there. A water message is a message of emotions or relationships coming from the heart. It could be tears. It could be tears of joy. It could be tears of happiness. Then we have a message of earth. What is that going to look like? Probably a little bit slower. It's going to be more practical. It's going to be more grounded. It may be a little more blunt, So then you go to knights, which for me are all about action. And so the action of air, action of fire, so we're just taking out one keyword and then applying it to the element. And then the queens in nurture, how we're going to nurture, how we're going to grow that element. And then the kings we have, for me, I see them as being masters or leaders. And And again, that's just one keyword to a number of keywords that you can look at from the tarot court. But it's so true to just keep it simple. Like aces are what? Beginnings. Threes are what? Community or expansion. Fours are stability. Fives are conflict or struggle or grief or action or irritation. So looking at how I think that's a brilliant way of going, and you just pick one keyword for each of the numbers or the court just at the beginning to then apply it to that and write it down. Like actually go and write down what you feel those things are. Don't even look at a deck, just use the keywords and build your own matrix. And that's a brilliant cheat sheet to have for yourself. And then we've got someone saying, Deirdre saying, trust your intuition. You probably know the cards better than you think, but it's easy to doubt and reach for a book. Totally. And something that one of my tarot teachers said to me was, and the reason why we have this at the Tarot Academy, it's like, just try putting your interpretation in there. Who gives a shit if you're wrong? Just try, and then go for the book and see if you were on point or right, or look it up on Google, or then go ask other people. But just try, because the thing is that if you're not, and this is like this could just be the witch in me, but if you're not putting the energy into it, you're not going to get anything out of it. You've got to like put the effort, the offer, the exchange out there to get anything back. So just try first and then do it. It doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you might have looked at something differently, or you're going to find a different aspect or a different way of looking at it, or a different correspondent. But trying just makes an effort like that. You'll be surprised. I totally agree with you, Deirdre. Jean is saying, I initially learned on the Tarot de Marseille, and I'm so grateful to have that as a base for numerology. So true. I actually found the Rider-Waite-Smith too distracting, so don't be discouraged and take it back to basics. Numerology is a great place to start, and you're absolutely right. It can help to have a deck that is not so illustrated or busy to learn. But people are different. Like, I'm not a great numbers person, and numerology is a bit different, but for whatever works. But I totally see what you're saying about how the base for numerology and the correspondences with the Marseille is definitely helpful for sure. And Josh was saying numerology is a fantastic tool for tarot too, because you can apply it to the majors as well. Totally true. Lee is saying the Creative Tarot by Jess Crispin is cool because she breaks it down similar to how Josh describes. And then Andrea is saying it's all about putting the puzzle piece together. Once I got the basics, it all clicked. I just love setting back and watching the cards speak to each other. I love that too. It's like, I also love seeing how, like, for me, how they're all like situated and are they all looking in the same direction. I'm like, what are you looking at? How are you looking at each other? And then Amber's saying that she agrees about not using the book. Gina, this is a great resource. 21 Ways to Read the Tarot convinced me that looking more on how I saw illustrations were totally okay, and my interpretation is okay. And Mary is fabulous. Pam saying, I follow the philosophy, so doing a lot of deep reflection, using tarot, and it's growing confidence in my own understanding, even if it's different. And it may add to what you learn because I see how it relates to meanings. So true. I know I'm talking really quickly. I'm just trying to make sure we're getting to as much as possible. Alrighty. So does anyone here have any questions they would like to ask while I try to find some other stuff, because I've got more than one thing open. Okay, so Lucy has a question. I would love to know how do you use your business planning with the tarot? That's a good question. So I have my Tarot by the Moon guide that I send out every year as a free resource. I use that a lot. Again, being a witch, I use the new moon and the full moon quite a lot. Well, that's like how I live my life. So I use the tarot. I use that very much when it comes to working around my life and my business to see key themes and things like that. I often use the cards as for SWOT analysis. So for those of you who have never used or heard that before, we have strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It's a very corporate kind of thing, but I know I have a corporate background. So I would look at, if I have a project that I'm looking at working on or something that I want to do, I'll ask the cards about strengths for the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats, and I'll look at it that way. And then often I'll pull a card for my business for every month. But when it comes to planning, it's a lot about looking at what projects are going to be worth it and the timing around there, and then using the tarot as a additional tool. Because for me, business acumen is like you kind of need to know what you're doing in that respect as well, and then having the tarot as like is a complementary thing. Yeah, so Pam's saying it's a good idea to use SWOT. I need to apply it more often. It's just a nice way to kind of be like, what haven't I considered? You know, and it's like getting a third party who's not so close. So Amber, if you want to unmute yourself now and start talking, then you can jump on in.
Hello everyone, I'd just like to find out what tools do people use alongside tarot besides the Lemond and Kipper? Do you use like ruins or crystals or things like that? I'm just going to mute myself because I'm a bit chatty.
Well, thank you for asking the question. Does anyone else want to field this one before I jump in? There's got to be some people on here who've got some things to say about this. No, you're going to make me do it? So a lot of people in the comments saying lithomancy, oracle, and runes. For me, astrology and crystals. Crystals around my cards, crystals, astrology. I'm just learning runes and numerology. I do know people who combine tarot and runes, meditation, crystal. There's lots of people saying that sort of stuff. So pendulums. I use a ton of different divination tools. Everything from scrying to runes to pendulums. Something that I like to, I'm kind of learning and getting into more is witches' runes. And actually learnt this from so these, you know, different kind of, I'm sorry, it's dark in here, so the lighting is a little bit shite. But one thing you can do if you use runes or bones or throw any sort of charms is to have your layout and then to throw them on top and see where they land. But again, do not if that's like way too complicated, then I wouldn't recommend doing that, but you can have a fun and play with it. I teach and I know Lenormand and Kipper and things like that, but runes I do a lot of, astrology I do a lot of. I'm like you, Joshua, I try to learn as many different systems in regards to correspondences to learn to deepen my tarot. I read tea leaves, I read coffee grounds, I'll scry. Basically anything magical, which is like right up my alley. I'm like right into it. My space is surrounded by cards, crystals. I use the Aurosoma, as many of you know, because I do that as a part of my practice, which I love. People have got here unconventional sources like storybooks. That's awesome. Diana, I'm making a black scrying mirror. Ooh, very nice. At the next dark moon. Candles, pendulums, crystals. Me too. Magical and witchy, all good. Thank you for the great question. Lots of tools. Yeah, it seems like most of us have a complementary practice of something else. So thank you for the question. I really appreciate it. Does anyone else have any questions they want to ask? I'm kind of going through, or that we haven't answered that you sent through and I'm missing for some reason. No? We all good? Is anyone doing anything fun for Halloween? Is anyone reading anywhere, or are they having any rituals for Samhain, or are they just, you know, going to go trick-or-treating with their kid like me. I'm going to do a very early Samhain so that I can go out. Diana's saying, here in Kansas in the Bible Belt this weekend, our town is having a witches weekend. That is super cool. Anna's saying, I'm reading at a winery. Nice. I'm being a gypsy fortune teller at a carnival. Nice. Awesome. Was there any other questions? Because I'm super happy to kind of wrap this up if everyone is Dunzo. Pagan Pride event is Saturday. I love Pagan Pride. Joshua saying, I want to do a party, but I think my tarot group is doing a bonfire and camp out. Nice. And I'll be in Spain on a health retreat. You want to take me with you? I could go to Spain. Alrighty. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining in on this Tarot Jam. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll pop the replay up soon. I hope you'll have an amazing rest of your week. And thank you so much for everyone who contributed in the chat and who contributed with asking questions and helping and being a part of our amazing community. And I will see you all next month on our Tarot Jam for then. So thank you.